This podcast may contain forward-looking statements that are subject to risks and uncertainties. These forward-looking statements are based on current expectations and may differ materially from actual future events or results due to a variety of factors. For a discussion of factors that could affect our business, please refer to our filings with the Securities and Exchange Commission. All of our statements are made as of today based on information currently available to us. We can give no assurance these statements will prove to be correct, and we do not intend and undertake no duty to update these statements except as required by law. Welcome to the Enovix Journey to Scale podcast for Thursday, December 7th, 2023. I'm Kristen Atkins, Vice President of Marketing and Communications. On this podcast, we'll talk to Enovix leaders and management to gain insights and details on the company's progress to build and manufacture a breakthrough in lithium-ion batteries to power the technologies of the future. Last week, we caught up with Enovix COO Ajay Marathe for an update on Gen2 equipment factory acceptance testing, or FAT, as well as the status of our Fab2 buildout in Penang, Malaysia. We are here with Ajay Marathe, our COO of Enovix. We held a podcast in September, and he walked us through everything happening on our journey to scale. And now, as a follow-up, he's been very busy. Welcome back, Ajay.
Thank you so much, Kristen. Thanks for doing this podcast. It's important for everyone to understand where we are and progress we have made since the last time. So hello, everyone, and looking forward to giving you that update.
Not only have you been busy here in Fremont, you've been traveling back and forth to Asia. And you've also met with some incredible people along the way. So walk us through what happened a few weeks ago when the Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry of Malaysia and the CEO of MITA came to Fremont.
Yes, this was a very exciting meeting for us. The MITI, as it is called, Ministry of Investment, Trade and Industry, and MITA, which is another influential organization in Malaysia. The CEO of MITA and the Minister of Investment, Trade and Industry, both were here for the meeting here in San Francisco, which they had the APEC gathering. APEC Summit, and they chose a couple of companies only actually to visit during their time here. One of the companies they chose was Enovix, which was very exciting for us because we wanted to showcase our product, our company to them so that they can give us all the support that we would need to really establish the company and really remove all the obstacles that one could, potentially face in terms of getting licenses and getting the approvals for the pioneer status, etc. So this visit was very, very important, and we had a very successful visit with both these guys and their, the cabinet that they brought over, where we hosted them here in Fremont.
So you gave them a tour of the line, and then a few days later, you met with the Prime Minister of Malaysia in San Francisco.
Yes, that was also another very exciting, event for us. Prime Minister of Malaysia, Anwar Ibrahim, who is the current, Prime Minister of Malaysia, he was here for the APEC meeting. Chose on the advice of MITI and MITA, he chose, Enovix as one of the companies he was going to meet. We had a very closed door, very intimate meeting with him and his entire cabinet, which was visiting, just to get him brought up to speed on who we are, what we are trying to do, and for him to show us a full support. And, just to quote him, he basically, told us, if anything that is kind of a hurdle in our way of making progress in Malaysia, he would want me to call him directly and make sure that no obstacles are left for us to start the ramp in Malaysia. This was very heartening to get directly from the PM. And we were very honored, actually, to meet with him and showcase Enovix technology company, introduce him, and it was really good.
So having the Prime Minister on speed dial.
Yes, yeah, you can say that exactly.
And I saw that we were one of three companies he met with. What were the other two?
Yes, the other two were Microsoft and Google, and we were the third one. So, and the articles were, seemingly humbling because it said the three tech giants he's meeting in the Bay Area were Microsoft, Google, and Enovix. So that was
Love it.
we were included in a nice group of companies.
Well, so remind us why you chose Malaysia.
Yes, so many reasons for choosing Malaysia. First, from the business standpoint, Malaysia opened its doors for foreign direct investment back in 1972, which is when Intel, AMD, the likes of Intel, AMD, National Semiconductor at the time, showed up in Malaysia and developed this entire ecosystem of semiconductor talent, which is basically a very unique talent in terms of engineering mindset and defect-free mindset, attention to detail mindset, all that stuff. And, I was involved with Malaysia, bringing Malaysia's talent, up for more than 3 decades with them, a couple of decades with AMD, and then after that with another company, which I managed actually in the LED space, both of which, gave me a tremendous knowledge and network of people. So when I, as I mentioned last time, I think I mentioned it, when I showed up for Enovix this time, I showed up at the airport and first 100 people who would be my first stop pick to be employees of Enovix showed up. Mostly to the airport and then to the meeting rooms in which we had arranged so that we could hire. So tremendous amount of traction we could get, and you could see the progress in Malaysia is a place where that's the only place amongst few other, couple other places in the world where in a 100-day period you could literally build a entire factory, and which is what we have done. Actually, it took us 100 days to take a warm shell and build it into a factory to our specs. And, we have shared that, I think, with you, and I'll, share that again when I'm there, physically there and showing off that factory. So that is only possible in so many places in the world. Malaysia is one of them. Definitely the cost structure is really, favorable for us, for the talent that we get. And then all this support from the government that, we just spoke of, Prime Minister meeting, the MIDI minister meeting, CEO of MIDA meeting with us. And so it becomes extraordinarily efficient and productive in a place like Malaysia. And we'll show it, again, by proof, by showing you how much progress we have made since the time we selected Malaysia up until now, and then we'll continue making that in the near future. So Malaysia became a very natural place for me to go set up this factory quickly.
You announced your partner. Tell us a little bit about them.
Yes, so YBS is a 20-year-old company, so it's not new. They have been sort of growing in the space in semiconductor. They have partnered with many great companies in the semiconductor space, actually, where they have become subcontractors, contract manufacturers. They had a factory which they were going to expand into until I showed up and said, okay, we will take over this building. And they were quite pleased with, how we moved very fast. I was pleased with just the talent that they bring. They have a huge machine shop, which frankly speaking, my eyes lit up when I saw the precision machining which was going on in their place, which again, my plan is to include them not just as a contract manufacturer, but also a supplier of many mechanical parts that we need actually for our, manufacturing line, as well as inside our battery. So they became a very natural and a good partner. They also put their skin in the game by bringing in the $70 million that we talked about already in for our first line. So their skin is in the game. Our skin is in the game because we signed a contract with them as a contract manufacturer, for them to be used. So yeah, this was really a good partnership, which is now going to blossom actually.
Enovix also announced recently that we acquired Jade based in South Korea. Does that help or does that add complexity to the company's manufacturing supply chain and scale up?
Right. So yeah, the Jade was a very, very strategic buy for Enovix, and let me explain to you why. They are a current battery manufacturer who have their own coating lines. Now, coating for a battery company is absolutely a very essential part of the manufacturing ecosystem. And what does that mean? Currently, up until the time we purchased Jade and brought them into our fold, we are, buying our coating capability from third-party suppliers. Those third-party suppliers are battery companies. They are existing battery companies, and there is a potential of having supply security with people who are in the battery ecosystem already. And by Jade acquisition, we essentially brought that coating capacity in-house and vertically integrated much needed vertical integration that we completed with Jade's acquisition, because we now have world-class coating capability of our own, located in a very cost-sensitive place in Nonsan in Korea, which is going to give us a tremendous capability of quick turns on different materials. Remember, we are a material agnostic company, so we are going to try all kinds of different materials through in our batteries until we get the best optimized material for the highest energy density, etc. So that needs very quick turns in coating. And to get that, the only way to do it is vertical integration. And so Routejade brings that. So no, it absolutely gives us a huge benefit from that regard.
Is there any concern that capability is not located in Malaysia?
No, I won't call it a big complexity or anything like that. I think this is going to work out fine. We can get we are buying the material. The raw material comes from several places. Then it goes into the coating line in Korea, and then the coated material in the form of rolls. So you can imagine spools of this coated material shipping. And the shipping cost, yeah, you can say that ultimately, would it be better to be all in one place? Sure, that'll be the most optimum. But this is not a big handicap where we are making it in a very cost sensitive, like I said, place, and then shipping it over to our factory in Malaysia.
Let's move on to Gen2 and diving into each line like we did in September, and you can give us an update on where we are. So let's start with zone 1 and reminding everyone you have 4 zones.
Yes.
That encompasses one line. Walk us through what's happening in zone 1.
Right. So zone 1, as a reminder, is basically laser patterning of the electrodes, which are made, which are coated in a place like Jade, which we just talked about. So the spools come into zone 1. So the zone 1, we had shared with you last time that we were already in the dry cycling and FAT startup mode already when we shared when I actually shared the video of what was happening. That zone is completing FAT. In fact, it is partly finishing in Q4 and arriving. The lasers will arrive before the end of the year, and most of them. Some of them will arrive late in December, but all of the zone 1 will be arriving in Penang mostly before the holidays. So zone 1 is doing well. We had to do a couple of rounds of learnings from what FAT. That's the beauty of FAT, right? Factory acceptance test is basically making the machine run materials. We run it in a marathon phase for 4 hours, measure the UPH, do the calculations based on the dimensional checks. And when we find something just not absolutely perfect, we go back into the redesigning of some parts of the machine, which is what happened. A couple of things had to be redesigned. like the rollers which kind of hold the film, the electrode film. Had the support of that had to be in one place, had to be redesigned just to make sure that the dimensional accuracy is guaranteed. We did all of that, and the work is complete. And yes, so zone one from both suppliers is going to be done here per plan. Then we go to zone two, which is really the stacking and beyond, and this one I showed in the film at a particular supplier actually in Asia as well. And that one is FAT is in progress, and per plan it is for HVM zone 2, it is finishing early December per plan. So that's going on okay. Zone 3, which is the longest pole in the tent, zone 3 is divided up into two subzones, zones 3A and 3B. And 3B is more of a degassing and typical pouching, a typical battery line, as I kind of shared with you guys, which is what 3B is. Zone 3A and 3B, FAT both are on track. We'll be finishing up in early Q1, and will be ready to be shipped to Penang in early Q1. 3A end of January, 3B kind of middle of February. So that's the zone 3. That's the longest pole in the tent for the HVM lines.
Okay. Is that the most challenging zone?
That is the most challenging because it has the most number of equipment in it. It's because of the zone 3A and 3B, right? In order to really hit the 1350 UPH, we had to add stations enough in each station, so that we get the 1350 constant UPH through the line, balanced line. And then the zone 4 is really the testing, formation testing, etc., cabinets. That one was ahead of schedule. We completed the FAT on zone 4, and actually the equipment is right now, as I'm talking to you, is being installed in Malaysia in our Fab2. So zone 4 would be the first one to be installed in Malaysia. I had promised that the line will start installing in November, and there you go. We have delivered on that promise. Zone 4 is being installed, and its timestamp is still before the end of November. So I'm happy that we're able to do that.
Remind us, out of those 4 zones, what's the most common battery equipment, and then what is customized tools for Enovix?
Right. So pretty much most all the tools have been customized in terms of what it is doing. The laser sources are typical laser sources that, there's only 3 or 4 companies in the world who make lasers, 100 watt, 200 watt, 300 watt, 1000 watt. So that's pretty much standard laser source, but the equipment itself is customized for zone 1 and zone 2, which is the stacking equipment. Zone 3, which is as I just mentioned, is the largest number of equipment in the entire manufacturing line. Zone 3 is the maximum number of equipment. Zone 3B is a big monster of a line. It's a 30-meter monster, and that's a pretty standard battery equipment. So that's the good news, right? So that's the pouching, sealing, that type of equipment, degassing, etc. So 3B is pretty standard equipment. 3A again is customized, and zone 4 is essentially the cabinets which are made to order for us. So largely customized. 3B is a pretty standard battery equipment.
3B and zone 4, those are most common, and then customized is zone 1, zone 2, and 3A.
Correct.
So remind us, factory acceptance testing is on track. What happens after that?
Right. So after the factory acceptance test is done, which is the really, really important step, as we have been saying it, the green light is given to the supplier. We go through the full checklist, which is, hundreds of line items. Then the FAT is complete. Then the machines are dismantled at the supplier. They're packaged properly and put on a boat for most part, and the boat sails. The good news is that everything is in Asia, so the time to arrive in Malaysia is fairly quick. 10 to 12 days of sailing plus, custom clearance, etc. Everybody is on a standby at any given time in terms of how the clearances are being done. Then the equipment comes in. It is carefully placed inside the factory. The factory is completely ready. Again, to remind everyone, zones 1 through 3 are all in what is called a clean room class 10K. To semiconductor people, they would understand what that is. And then zone 4 is in 100K, kind of clean room area. All that is complete. The equipment shows up uncrated, brought into the factory, wiped down, brought in, and hookup begins. When the hookup is done, dry cycling again. That goes on for a few days, making sure everything is working. Hookups are done correctly, and then we begin SAT, which is a site acceptance test.
Is that conducted by the Enovix team or by the vendor team?
Right. So it is, it's always a joint exercise. Just to give you an idea, in the whole SAT, the equipment people on different zones, which will be coming in, is to the order of 30 to 50 per zone from the equipment supplier. These are engineers, wiring guys, process guys, maintenance people, as well as the facilities hookup guys. And from our side, it'll be mostly process engineering, facilities engineering, will be about 30 to 50 from our side. So at any given time, there'll be 100 plus people in that building trying to or getting the SAT done when the SAT begins.
You shared some photos in the walkthrough, and it looks beautiful.
Yes.
Looks like it's ready to roll.
Yep.
So tell us about the learnings, just going back to what you learned from the Gen 1 line, and now as you're in the middle of FAT, you're going to start SAT. Where do you expect to begin in terms of yield from Gen 1 to Gen 2?
Right. So that's a really good question, and one which gets asked a lot, whenever I'm, talking to investors or, other people who are well-wishers interested in the company itself. So yeah, there's a lot of yield learning that has happened. As I mentioned, a year ago when I joined, it was, single-digit yields. Now we are, doing pretty good here in the Fab1, even though the equipment is not to the standard as the Gen 2 equipment, which is designed, by us very meticulously in terms of how the, different parts, as in linear motors, the whole thing which I've shared before as to how Gen 2 was designed. But the learnings from Gen 1 have been on where exactly the yield Paretos are, right? So where we lose, parts, where we lose batteries. And that learning has, fairly been, very well documented actually with our engineers. The same engineers, and remember, when we hired the first 30, 40 people in Malaysia, they spent more than 3 months here in Fab1 learning and understanding the Paretos of the yield. And they have that now ingrained into their heads in terms of what could go wrong and, where are the different variables, where's the process windows. Yields is all about process windows, right? If you have wide enough process window in order to really meet the the specs, then you can vary between that process window and still hit the yield, right? That's the idea. So widest possible windows, making sure the specs are met at any given time. So the X bar or the median or mean of the Gaussian distribution needs to be at least 3 sigmas away from the upper spec or lower spec limit. And that's what the engineers have been busy doing, right? So, finalizing the process windows and making sure that we have enough process window and margin, which will allow us to operate, within the variability of both materials as well as equipment. So that learning has been, pretty solid. We will begin where Fab1 is ending, and we will, go up from there. And as I've mentioned to you before, the PCR2, PCR3 work will begin after SAT. PCR2 is essentially guaranteeing CPK of 1 for every process step that is used in the battery manufacturing. And PCR3 is when you hit CPK of 1.33. 1.33 is 4 sigmas away, 1.0 is 3 sigmas away for the mean and the variability and the sigmas, right? So this is how the discipline, manufacturing process really works in the semiconductor. We are applying the same exact knowledge here in the battery manufacturing.
Yes, I recommend anyone listening who wants to learn about all of the acronyms, they look back at your blog that we published in September.
Yes.
It's acronym soup in the manufacturing world.
Yes, indeed.
Oh, great. Well, so the team in Malaysia, you mentioned already the process engineers. How many people do you have there now?
Yeah, we have a little over 60. I think we're closing in on 65 people. It basically is going up every week. We have hired all the key process people, integration people. We have hired all the support people, procurement, supply chain, finance, quality, integrated them into the ecosystem of the company. Uh, we have already started using the Malaysia people for FAT, so that they can get to participate right from the beginning, so that they can, when they own the equipment back in Malaysia, they would know exactly what to expect, and the relationships there between them and the equipment suppliers as well, which is very important. Same thing with procurement, same thing with quality.
Let's talk about the agility line. We've talked a lot about the high volume manufacturing line in the 4 zones. What's the latest on the agility line in Penang?
Right. So the agility line is also being manufactured, as you know, by the same suppliers. And the agility line, just to remind everyone, is essentially zone 2 and zone 3 only.
Mhm.
Zone 1 and 4 are what are called farms. One is a laser farm. The second one is a tester farm. So zone 1 is a laser farm. Zone 4 is a tester farm. Those are common feed into the HVM line as well as the agility line. The agility line is zone 2 and 3. What is different about agility line than the HVM line? It just doesn't have all the automation and all the conveyance between machines, right? So it's still dependent somewhat on feeding the equipment. But the beauty of the agility line is that it is completely flexible. You should be able to go from one cell size to the next cell size within half a shift, and that's what agility brings, right? So now that equipment is also being built, and it is following. We have prioritized agility line in terms of getting that done, FAT work on that done sooner, and then tracking that through the FAT completion as well as going into Malaysia. So all that is on track, and will be in Malaysia. Agility line in Malaysia will be installed in Penang, in some in Q4 and majority of it early Q1, so that we are ready to do samples in pretty decent volumes at 100, 200 UPH roughly, so that customers can get the actual samples built in Malaysia on this agility line. Now, reminder is that the agility line has the same kernel as the HVM line. So when a customer gets samples from the agility line, is representative of what they're going to get from the HVM line.
What are you going to be producing on the agility line?
So we're going to bring up the agility line in 2 custom cells, which we are engaged with, a couple of really key important customers right now. Obviously, we can't disclose everything that has been going on, but these 2 custom cells will be brought up on the agility line as we do SAT. So what we are doing is, instead of doing it on some standard product as we originally were thinking, because we have this customer engagement now, we're going to bring up the agility line on these 2 custom cells. So
Perfect.
we're ready to go right off the bat.
You are also planning to head out again from Fremont back to Asia. When do you leave?
Yes, so I'm predominantly shuttling between here and Asia. I leave again on the midnight of December 14th to get there so I can spend the whole week witnessing the equipment, which is landing in Penang, coming in. As I mentioned to you, Zone 4 is already making its way. So Zone 4 will be predominantly installed by the time I reach there. And Zone 1 equipment will start coming in while I'm there. Zone 2 equipment still in FAT and other parts of Asia will be, I'll be monitoring all of that when I'm there in Malaysia. So I'll be in Malaysia for the leading up all the way to Christmas, and then probably take a week break myself, and then back at the grind on in the first week of January.
And then before you head out to Asia, what's happening next week?
Yeah, so next week, as I said, DIMES, which is the acronym for DFX, Design for Cost, Design for Manufacturability, Integral Yield, Material Cost Down, Equipment Efficiencies, and and more out of the existing equipment, and Supply Chain Excellence. That's the DIMES acronym, just as a reminder. DIMES is not just a program of the quarter or program of the month, right? It is our DNA. So to continue those workshops is extremely important to create a culture in the company which is based on these essential operational excellence pillars, which is basically DIME. So we're going to have the workshop here, even though the team is spread out right now. They're not in one location. We're going to do this over Zoom. Over 60 people are going to join the workshop. Typically, this is going to be now, because a lot of people are in Asia. I'm still here in Fremont. I'm going to do this over Zoom from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. For a couple of days, go through the tactical stuff, but at the same time, get the whole team excited about what is coming in 2024. What do we have to work harder for? And then wish everyone, happy holidays as I part ways with a lot of them. So that's what is happening next week.
As a reminder, you really explained DIMES and operational excellence in your September blog, if anyone wants to read more about that. Congratulations on the milestones met and staying on track with FAT. Wish you the best on your travels back to Asia mid-month, and we're excited to see more photos and get a progress report when you return.
Thank you so much. Very much appreciate it, and hopefully people got a little more insight on what's happening with Enovix manufacturing right now.
That concludes this episode of our Journey to Scale podcast. Thank you all for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe for alerts. We'll be releasing new episodes as we reach new milestones and scale up to high volume manufacturing. Until then, thank you and have a great day.